Okay, well, we are moving into the fifth track and final track for the Carbon Summit. And went through the mitigation, we went through the adaptation, and now we're moving into some sustainability. And our next speaker, I have the honor and the privilege of introducing my boss's boss, and a guy who I had met in March or April of this year, about 4 months is before I got to campus here. And we had meetings with Ryan Johnson, Bill Brantz, another Ryan, and we were talking about the stuff that I was trying to do. And I asked Mark, I was like, hey, I'm looking for a job on campus. Think I could get a management intern? And he's like, well, let me think about that. And I actually am a management intern, now. And so he's had the ultimate, one of the best champions, that I could have ran into coming into a university of this size and magnitude. And so let me introduce Marc Campbell is one point of light in an infinite cosmos, a simple mass trying to exert some gravitational pull in this little corner of our shared universe. He joined ASU as the Executive Director for University Sustainability Practice in August 2022 after 24 years as a utility professional at SRP, where he had a diverse career working on strategic planning, water rights, water supply development, and managing sustainability policy and programs. At ASU, Marc is responsible for operational sustainability strategy, including oversight of the university's 8 sustainability goals, public reporting, campus engagement, and building collaborative bridges to advance meaningful sustainability outcomes. Marc is here today to provide an update on the status of operational and cultural sustainability here at ASU, and Marc is a champion. So let's give him a little round of applause.
Thank you, Jason. Can everybody hear me okay? Thanks for having me today. I'm excited to be in the highly coveted mid-afternoon speaking time slot, kind of caught between this time where people start to wane, their awareness starts to wane, and kind of starting to look forward to the end of what has been a full day. Although I also hear there's some building excitement for Brent's 5 o'clock keynote talk, so that I think will be really interesting. I think there's a number of things that I want to talk about here today, and a number of themes that I'm going to just kind of touch upon that I've heard through some of the sessions that I've attended. And when Jason first started building out the agenda for this event, we sat down and we talked a little bit about what he wanted to accomplish. And I think there are some really extremely high-level things that are completely paramount and very important about what we've got to do to address climate change and a number of the things in terms of sustainability. But I think sometimes that gets lost, right? I mean, I think that it's so big that it is difficult for many of us to comprehend what that actually looks like. And so I talked to Jason a little bit about how do we start to distill this down? How do we keep it simple? How do we start to make some connections right here in our own community, our campus community, where things are a little bit more tangible, right? There are things happening out behind me here on our campus that have been going on for a number of years that you can all impact and that we can all map to as students and as community members. And that's what I really wanted to do, is kind of push that home for us, is to distill that down and really make it clear that we can all make some sort of an impact. Right? When I talk about these big picture things, I see people's eyes glaze over, because I think there are some really smart people working on these things, and I'm glad that they are. But if you look at various estimates out there, there's one from MIT about the amount of carbon that we would need to remove from the atmosphere just to go back to 1988 levels. It's 500 billion metric tons. What does that even look like? I don't know. I mean, I've kind of put information out there before, and people just don't seem to understand what that truly takes. It's a huge number, right? But so let's talk a little bit more today then about what all of us can do to be more positive here. I think contextually, and that's where I want to start, is setting some of this up. Where have we come from to understand where we are now and set the stage for where we need to go and some of the things that we are going to be doing here at ASU in the near future. This is a new banner that I just saw yesterday. We've all seen ASU's banners around the side of our shuttle buses, billboards, etc. But this new one, repeatedly ranked number 1, innovation, global impact, and the reason we're here today, sustainability. It's a really great thing. It sets up a lot of expectations. It's a big challenge, right? It's very hard to get to be number one. It's hard to get to the top. It's even harder to remain at the top. And I'm going to make an argument that we have really done a fantastic job of plucking the low and middle hanging fruits. But in order for us to continue to go forward and remain number one, which is Dr. Crow's expectation of this university and of our culture, is that we push this and we continue to advance. It's going to take significant investments, and it's going to take significant energy from all of us and people around campus to stay there. Okay, so think about that for a minute, because I think that is really an important part of what we're trying to accomplish here. Before I leave this slide, if there's anybody interested in leaving, I'll cut right to my elevator summary of where I think we are right now in terms of sustainability. And certainly some people can argue with me about it, but I think it is I'm a pragmatist, and I think it's a pretty good general summary. And it goes something like this. ASU is recognized as being at the forefront of sustainability in higher education. We have a university president that is committed to this institution being a global sustainability leader academically and operationally. Since 2007, we've made significant investment across all of our campuses, including substantial energy efficiency improvements, on-site solar generation, you can see some of them out behind us, and other large-scale energy projects that have resulted in a net carbon emissions reduction of 86%, while the university's student population has grown almost 40%, and building square footage has grown about 54%. We are making good progress in some of our comprehensive sustainability goals, and we are stagnating in others. We have all of the ingredients here for a fully embedded culture of sustainability, but they need to be mixed and fully baked. Sustainability is a journey. It's not an endpoint. And like all high-achieving organizations, there's still more for us to do. As I continue to go forward, what I'm going to ask is that really this is a discussion. I'm not here to lecture, although I will pontificate. You've given me a microphone, that's the danger. But this is our time. This is an opportunity to talk about things. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear your thoughts. If there is something that piques your interest as we talk about it, please raise your hand. I also want to see Jason run around with a microphone. Where'd Jason go? Okay, so please, I'm more than happy to answer those questions and explore various streams as we move along. I think kind of sets the stage here for, I think, really how a lot of us look at sustainability. And this is a quote from our Executive Vice President, our Chief Financial Officer, who is in charge of the operational sustainability here at ASU. And he speaks to the full comprehensive nature of sustainability at this organization, that it isn't just about recycling energy, right? It's an enterprise-wide effort, and that means it's going to take all of us to get there. Right? It's integrating sustainability into everything that we do. And I think there's a lot of that around campus. I think what we are lacking are good, comprehensive, solid plans to take those next steps forward. Okay, everything we do, academic offerings, the research we conduct, the way we operate campus, student experiences, investments we make with our endowments, and even the food we serve. So a lot of various areas that we touch upon. Why pursue sustainability? I think it really cuts to who we are as an academic institution. It's about our charter. It's about our mission. It's about the opportunity to become a living laboratory. We heard Jennifer talking a little bit about some of the things that can happen in the community. I would argue we should be doing a better job at times of integrating some of that into our own campus community. Heard her talk about heat resiliency. Heard her talk about cool pavement. Heard her talk about more trees. I think we need more of that here. Students, faculty, staff are out walking around in August when it's still 115 degrees, right? We had 55 days of 110 plus degree temperatures here in Phoenix this past summer. And students are returning to campus, and we've got to think about how we can be more resilient and provide better opportunities for them to stay cool and to really thrive Next ones, I think, really our students that were here earlier, our high school students, kind of touch upon some of these things, right? Number one, we want to graduate resilient global citizens. We want all of you that are here to think about how you're going to go out and make an impact in the world. I think some of us are just setting the stage for you. That's what I'm here doing, some of my colleagues are doing, but it's really going to be the world that you inherit, and what can you do with that, right? Providing a better future for the next generation. This last one is one that I added, and frankly, it's just good business practice. If we think about ASU, what does Dr. Crow call it? It's an academic enterprise. It means it's a business. Our business happens to be about educating students, about creating global leaders. But the fact of the matter is, we've got a bottom line. And really, my elevator pitch on business sustainability comes down to four things, and it's kind of four quadrants, right? If you're doing sustainability, and I think people can everybody, wherever they reside within the organization, if they want to make an impact, sometimes they think, maybe I can't, but if you think about this and think about sustainability in this way, maybe you can, right? Sustainability done right, it's about more money, less cost, better brand, and less risk. Right? And if you look around, I think that we've talked a little bit about some of the lunch tables and other conversations. It's not a bad thing to make money. ASU sustainability brand drives a lot of money coming into this institution. But at the same time, we are a lean organization, and I think there is a misnomer that because there is so much research dollars, so many grants that are coming into the university, that money is everywhere around the university. On the operational side, I will tell you, it's a lean organization. And so we've got to think from a business case perspective about the projects that we're implementing and what we're doing and how we can become even better. We need good financial plans to get there. Okay? The better brand goes along with it. And I think less risk, right? If you understand where you are sourcing materials, you can start to plan a little bit differently. How many brands over the years have you seen or heard of that have been damaged because they didn't know where their products were coming from? Many. And I think a lot of organizations have started to wake up and realize that they've got to do things differently. So, good business practice. Been substantial progress, right? Why are we repeatedly ranked number one? ASU has done a lot. Even before we became the first school of sustainability in 2006, the Global Institute of Sustainability was created in 2004. So nearly 2 decades now, ASU has had a sustainability focus. President Crow, he was the chair, I think, of the American College and University President's Climate Committee, and he was one of the first ones to sign on to the climate commitment, which resulted in our climate goals, our scopes 1, 2, and 3 climate goals. That led to really us elevating one of or advancing our time frame for achieving carbon neutrality on scopes 1 and 2. We had a commitment 2025, 2035 commitment for scope 3. We achieved scopes 1 and 2 in 2019, so 6 years ahead of schedule. And we did that through a portfolio approach. And I'm going to come back to that in just a little bit, but I touched upon some of it earlier, really about some of the energy efficiency improvements that we did, energy performance service contracts, all of the on-site solar, a number of different things. It also includes, though, purchase of RECs and carbon offsets. And the carbon offsets piece, as many of you are aware, is quite controversial. There are a lot of bad actors out there. There are some really bad carbon offsets. And so how do we think differently about utilizing those at the university? How do we advance our maturity? And then how do we think beyond that longer term to move off of carbon offsets and really move toward a fully decarbonized campus? And what does that look like? Julianne Wrigley Global Futures Laboratory, the first comprehensive school of its kind, launched in 2020. I think there are 4 first schools under there. I think the School of Sustainability is one. I think there's 3 others. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But again, really significant achievements. Number 1 in the US and number 2 in the world in ASU stars. The Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, Sustainability Tracking and Ranking System. This is a significant move for us. I think we were, Alex, were we number 3 before? Yeah, we were number 3 before this latest ranking. but we're ahead of Stanford, and we're ahead of some other big schools. And Stanford is making a lot of inroads on what they're doing in terms of sustainability. And for some of you who've seen Dr. Crow's emails, right, I mean, he loves this, but he wants us to retain this ranking. He doesn't want us to lose pole position. Number 1 in the US and number 6 in the world in the Times Higher Education University Impact Ranking for the Sustainable Development Goals. Again, pretty significant. We slipped a little bit in the world. A number of other schools have gone. That is quite an interesting ranking system that would probably merit a whole nother discussion. But again, really top accolades for this university. And I don't want to forget those because it really now sets the stage for why we need to continue to think more creatively and differently about what we want to do in the future. I'm setting this up here in terms of our 8 sustainability goals, not because I'm going to go through all of these and give you our current state of sustainability on them. I'm going to touch on parameters of those, but we do have 8 sustainability goals. I think these were last revised in about 2017 as part of kind of our future focus, which I'm going to come back to in a couple of minutes. We're going to start to think about how do we refine and revise those. How do we think a little bit differently about those? But some of the things we'll talk about today that have the connections here, circular resources, and I know there's a panel earlier today. We heard a little bit about some of ASU's challenges there, as well as our opportunities. Climate positive, we'll talk a little bit about optimizing water, and then I want to conclude really with personal action, right? The call to action for all of you. Because me and my team of 8, sitting across the street, are not going to solve all of the university's challenges here. This is a large campus, 25 million square feet of building space, 155,000 students, 80,000 of which are on campus here in Tempe, and about 20,000 faculty and staff. It would be folly to think that 8 people can be everywhere at once to do that. And so it's going to take collective and collaborative action from all of us to get there. And if you're not familiar with our sustainability goals and visions as they currently are, there's a website. You can go check them out. Any questions so far? I'm not seeing any hands. I'm not seeing Jason running around. Okay, so let's get into a few highlights then. Okay, and you'll see I kind of gave us the light marker there, red, green, yellow. So we'll start off with a green, electric vehicle transportation, and really the transition to a fully electrified fleet. I'm being a little bit generous here, to be honest. I think we're a little behind what some other organizations are doing in the Valley. One that I came from, actually, I think has done a tremendous job with this. But we are really starting to move the needle quite a bit, and that's why we've got a green light, because we are really going forward with this quite a bit. Some of the highlights, we've got a number of EV charging ports installed around campus. Unfortunately, they're underutilized. I think so. We need to see more electric vehicles coming onto campus, and I think that's something for all of you to start to think about. Right now, yes, EVs most of them are still pretty expensive, although you can pick up some used ones for a lot less money. But the infrastructure is here. And so how are we going to use that to drive down our carbon emissions? Number one. Number two, how are we going to leverage that infrastructure to enhance our community, to open up some potential charging opportunities to the apartment complexes and folks that are living in multiple unit dwellings around us? We've got an ongoing conversion of sedans to EVs. So we've got about 400 ASU sedans in the fleet, 300 of which come under the CFO, so the structure that I report to. So that one we can start to tackle internally through just kind of moving policies. The other 100 are going to really require a more strategic effort to get out and talk to people around the community about what that looks like. I'm going to jump to one of the opportunities that we've currently been working on is piloting a shared fleet motor pool. And so going back to a concept of not every department needing to have their own individual assigned vehicles, but this fact is let's right-size the fleet. Let's get enough vehicles in the fleet for people to check out and use. And as we start to see aging vehicles retired, make sure that the ones that we are bringing in are electric or hybrid electric so that we are driving down our carbon emissions. This week, yesterday, I think, we had the delivery of one of our first F-150 Ford Lightning trucks. So really kind of starting to take a look at some of those more light-duty applications with vehicles. We have an electric shuttle bus now. I don't think that has been branded yet. Probably haven't noticed it being out, but you will. And there is an opportunity for us to start to think about how all of those shuttle buses are converted to electric and getting them off of diesel, or at least to cleaner diesel. And then some of the things that we've been doing are regional engagement. And so I kind of touched upon this a little bit earlier with the charging infrastructure, but we are participating in the Transportation Electrification Alliance, which is a group of regional stakeholders here that are really trying to unlock and open up the benefits of electrified transportation to the larger community. And so ASU is really trying to help support that. Still some things to go. Kind of touched upon these already. I'll just quickly say, a university-wide EV strategy is coming. We're starting to work on that. And then we've got to start to think about the medium and heavy-duty vehicle conversions. And still waiting a little bit for technology and costs to catch up there, but we've got to start to plan for it. Yellow, yeah.
Test.
You mentioned that the EV chargers are not being utilized enough. How do people know where they're at? Is it in the ChargePoint app? Is it in, I think that's partly a lot of the issues. People just don't know where they're at.
You're absolutely right, Randy. There are online resources where you can find where those chargers are located. I will tell you, a lot of the stuff is buried here. And in any pragmatic or realistic state of anything discussion, you've got to kind of talk about the opportunities. I think one of the opportunities for ASU is to really align a lot of our internal websites a little bit better in some of our communications. So some of it is out there. We can do it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And certainly, if the internal community doesn't know where they're there, the external community is not going to have any idea about it. And Alex, I can't remember. Are they in the ChargePoint app? They are. Okay. Yep. So, and I forgot to tell you, I don't know everything. I tell my family I do, but my team is here and they know everything. They're the ones who make me look good. So energy resources, and thanks for that question. Kind of went through this already. We've had significant growth, but yet we've been able to reduce our total net carbon emissions. A lot of different things that we've done here in terms of the solar arrays that are the quite visible components of our sustainability initiatives. You've seen them all over campus. I think outside the MU, we've really created a nice area where we've got shade now. When I was a student here, 25 plus years ago, that did not exist. It was a little bit hot out there. I talked, we've got a number of things that we're doing here with PPAs and virtual PPAs. Talked a little bit about the carbon offsets, and I'm going to come back to that really and dig into the future focus of where we're going. But all of those things have been important components, and despite some of the criticism of carbon offsets, right now they are necessary for any organization that is demonstrating carbon neutrality in their scopes 1 and 2. They need to be regarded as a bridge. We need some of the technology to improve. We need costs to come down. But one of the things that we focused on last year after I started was enhancing ASU's maturity in that space. So if you start to think about carbon offsets, the spectrum of carbon offsets from simple avoidance, kind of being some of the cheaper and perhaps lower quality carbon offsets on one end of the spectrum, over to carbon removals, where you're actually investing in removing atmospheric carbon, which is quite expensive, right? How are we going to move across that spectrum? Again, we aren't going to get down to $600 to $1,000 a metric ton projects, which are carbon removals, but we needed to do a better job. And so we dug in on that, put a business case out there, and we have been able to start to advance that. And I'm going to pause on that because I want to come back to the next phase of where we're going to go with that. Okay, and that's really the long-term decarbonization plan that's going to include potential transition from carbon offsets. What does that start to look like? What are some of the bridge opportunities for us? And then the future use of our combined heat and power plant, right, which is the central plant here in ASU that drives the heating and the cooling. And so that's going to be a significant and costly opportunity for us.
I wonder if we still have aspirations for a large-scale biodigester?
Good question. I have not heard much about it while I'm here. I don't know any. No? Alex is shaking his head no. So no. But when you're talking about biodigesters, anaerobic digestion, things like that, let's pause on that for a second, because when I come back to the potential for where are we going to go with carbon offsets, there's more to come potentially on there, right, as we scope that out, okay? Circular resources. We're probably on an amber here, maybe pink around the edges. And you heard Alana talk about that this morning. We've stepped up some of our time frames for single-use plastics elimination to 2026. It's going to be quite a challenge. This is one area where, I kind of talked earlier about, we stagnated in some areas. This 40% number really hasn't changed in a couple of years. And we've got to think better about that, right? We've got to do more. But there is a mature campus recycling program here. I think we're still in kind of the earlier stages with some of the composting. We've started to focus on this year on some of the residence halls and some of the things that we can do there. We did a really cool pilot with Starbucks to use reusable cups. I think that resulted in, what was it, Chris, the reduction of like 240,000 cups. Do you recall? Anybody recall?
Mine does. I know we were hitting about a 40% return rate from the cups and coming back on, and then we dropped down to about 30, I believe, after that.
Okay, so then that's engagement, right? I mean, I think the folks need to do better, and so that's kind of what I want to build up to, my denouement, as they say, right? Opportunity, single-use plastics elimination, and how are we driving those changes? I'm going to set this up a little bit too. It's going to be supply chain. It's going to have to be a big part of that. We're going to have to rethink how we're working with our contractors and our vendors. Next one, that ties right into increased vendor partnerships and support. And we've got a lot of entities that are doing business on this campus with us, a lot of external partners, and we are going to need to kind of utilize SRP's buying power, or SRP, wow. 24 years, and it comes out occasionally. We need to utilize SRP's buying power too, but utilize ASU's buying power to really get them to think a little bit differently about what they're doing and make some changes for us. Downstream infrastructure development. Alana may have talked about this morning. I missed her conversation, but what's happening outside of our boundaries? So if we are doing a better job composting, are there places to send that compost? Right? What does recycling infrastructure look like? How do we build up more economic development around that? And then I'm, again, kind of going to hit it again, enhance campus engagement. Right? It comes down to behavioral change. What can we all do differently? I've spent years of my sustainability life sticking my arm into waste streams to pull out plastic bottles that could have been put in the bin simply right next to it. And I know others in this room have too. Optimized water, well, probably a red light on that one. We have been committed to achieving a 15% reduction in water imported in the university by, I can't remember if it was FY23, which we've now missed, or if it was just by calendar year 23, which we're about to miss. So I'll go with the latter. But during the time, our water use has increased. Why? Because of our annual growth. Okay? Again, we've got a campus, we've got more people on it, and we've got more buildings. We've got more landscaping. And the low cost of water makes it really difficult to demonstrate an ROI on some of the significant investments that we need to make. Doesn't mean it doesn't need to be done. Absolutely does. Our CFO is aware of that. But when I have to go in and ask for money to do that, we need to start to understand what are the counterfactuals, right? How can we take credit for some of the indirect benefits of what we're doing? We know we need to do it, but it's hard to get there. But we are focusing on turf transition in non-functional areas, and so those are the areas that are just purely decorative. There are areas of campus that probably need to have some turf for events and other things, but in the areas where we don't need turf, let's convert that over to xeriscape. We can still do more on building fixture retrofits, and there's a potential to pilot hybrid units in our cooling towers. Other things that we can do. We're actively out seeking grants through the Water Infrastructure Financing Authority here in Arizona and other opportunities to bring money in to kind of buy down the cost for ASU. All right, how am I doing on time, Jason? Future focus, what next? It's a pretty dense slide, a lot here. First one is create a a model for a fully sustainable university. This is something that Dr. Crow, for those of you who are familiar with his style, I guess he likes to write a lot of notes, ideas on sticky notes. And so this is a sticky note that's been in existence now, I think, for probably 3 or 4 years or something. And he wants this university to be the first to create a model for to define a fully sustainable university. And what that really means is that I want to start to develop time-bound plans for concrete action. We will be co-convening a process with the operations side and the Global Futures Laboratory in 2024 to start to do this. Because I think for it to be successful, I need to integrate all different perspectives, right? We need to bring stakeholders in, and we need a whole bunch of people to tell us really what this starts to look like and arrive at something that we can all feel pretty good about. I don't think everyone's going to be completely satisfied because there are a number of different perspectives here. Excuse me. But I think what is lacking is a plan to get there. We have 8 sustainability goals, which I touched upon earlier, that need to be revised. But I think the problem is we're a little out of order now. Many organizations have spent a lot of time developing sustainability goals, and goals are great, but goals themselves don't drive outcomes. Plans do. Hope is not a plan. And that's an inside joke. I never thought I'd say it, but here I am, because it's true. We need to develop the plans to go for it. And so we're going to do that. We want to measure real progress. Address the challenges of expanding footprint and climate risk on campus operations and environment. And they were talking about this at the session a little bit ago. Right? Heat resiliency. How do we make this a better campus for our students and our faculty and staff experience? Part of that, and it's also a part of what we start to map up to with the fully sustainable university, is to create that longer term decarbonization plan. So as this footprint continues to expand, how do we get to a place where we are fully decarbonized and we've identified pathways to get there? And I think even more importantly is we have financial plans that support that. Mentioned low and medium hanging fruit kind of being plucked, right? What's left out there for us is significant. There'll be significant outcomes, but there are going to be significant costs too. And I need to show people around the university how many zeros it's going to take to get there. And I think that we don't have that right now. Talked a little bit about identifying the opportunity for offsets, right? Digesters, anaerobic digestion, forest health, forest resiliency up on our watersheds. I want to start to think about that a little bit. So rather than buying offsets elsewhere in the country or potentially in the world, what can we do to invest ASU's money where we will have local impacts, where we can actually start to invest and build up projects that we can point to as transforming our community? It's a good narrative, and then take the carbon offsets as the bridge as we continue to work on that plan. That is also a process that we are going to start, well, we're actually probably starting in the next couple weeks, but we'll fully get going on it after the new year. Integrate ASU research and innovation into campus operations as a living laboratory. I think it's done some, but I think we can do a lot more of it. I think Cool Pavement's one of them. We've got the mechanical tree out here that operates but it's not hooked to anything, right? What are the opportunities for us to work with our own academics and our own researchers in a circular manner, for us to bring our operational challenges to them, to innovate on, to give us solutions that we can put back in practice and model here on our campus. Last one I'm going to talk about is seizing partnership opportunities to transform supply chain upstream and downstream. This is just going to be a big one for us. There's a lot of money here, but it's a gigantic animal. And so we've got to start to tackle our Scope 3 emissions, and supply chain is in that. We've got a 2035 goal that's sitting there, and there's not been much work done on it, and 2035 will come quickly. So we're really, frankly, in one of two positions, right? We either start to work on it, or we walk it back. And we're not walking that back at this institution, right? That's not what makes us number one. And so we've got to start to think about that. Another potential project that really I'm not going to talk about yet because it's still in kind of the fledgling stages, but another potential project on the horizon here in early 2024 to get us moving down that pathway. And I'll start to wrap up now. what can you do, right? I mean, this saying's somewhat trite, think globally, act locally, but I mean, but it still has merit. This summit is about global challenges, but we live here. We walk around and we contribute to this campus, so what can you actually do? Right? I mean, there's a number of different things here. I mean, then I'm not going to touch upon all of these. I want to get down more toward the bottom. I want to see more involvement from our students. Be honest, I'm going to put out a clarion call for you to think about how you can participate. And here's the thing, right? I'm talking to self-selected people here today. You aren't the people I really need to talk to. You aren't the people I need to reach. But what I'm going to ask you to do is to be a megaphone for us, to go out and talk to your friends, talk to other people on the campus community. Because again, 8 people aren't going to do it, but if each of you hits 8 people, right, we can start to have a magnifying effect. And that's what we're really going to need here. I think use campus and personal resources to drive sustainability outcomes. Right? Think about where are you spending your money? Right? If you really actually want to know what's important to you, create a budget. Track where you spend your money. It's kind of surprising. Right? Are you spending money on convenience? Right? We heard our students talking about high fashion, kind of throwaway clothing. Are you investing in Patagonia? It's going to cost you more, but it's going to last a long time. They're a sustainability brand, right? So think about that. But we also have campus resources that you can utilize. In addition to the expertise, there is a Sustainability Initiatives Revolving Fund. The first tier of that provides grants for sustainability engagement up to $5,000. And so what we're really trying to do is kind of make sure that everybody is aware of that. It's a fairly simple process, and we are restructuring some of this. It's a fairly simple process to apply for the money, to get some advanced advice from us on how you can make that a really tight application. So think about what you can do there. And finally, ask what if. I love to hear suggestions, right? I'm not going to tell you there's no such thing as a bad idea. There are. I tried many of them in my late teens and early 20s. That was a bad idea. Thankfully, I grew up in a time, I came of age in a time when there weren't cameras everywhere. Okay, Xer, right? I'm not that old, I'm not a boomer. And that's why I'm here, thankfully. But what I want you to do is to ask, what if? Right? You all have a lot of great ideas. What's the worst that's going to happen? You bring me an idea. I'm going to thank you for bringing me an idea. May not be the right time, may not work. But how many ideas do you have to actually cull through to get to the ones that actually will work? But I need you all thinking that way. Okay? So I'm going to stop there and see if there are any comments or questions.
I have an idea and then a question. The idea is, would it be possible to create a video that is played every time ASU has a conference that involves food, that's played, that shows exactly what goes in each bin? Because we have a lot of people, not only here, but coming from off campus that could really learn from that. And it would prevent so much of the spoilage and mixing. Even here, all the bins were mixed at a sustainability event. The question is, what can we do about Aramark? Because they are working at cross purposes with what your stated goals are at ASU. Jason did a great job of getting paper plates and then the compostable utensils. Couldn't you just say that's what's required for all events? Because I go to multiple sustainability events where it has single-use plastic afterwards.
Yep.
And one of them was even for an expert in stopping all plastic. That was plastic.
So I believe that if you request all compostables from Aramark, they will provide it. So I think, to be fair, the other thing that I'm talking about in terms of kind of let me start at the top. Thank you for your idea. A short video is a good idea, right? I mean, I think kind of just play it, have the repetition of letting folks see what's there. I think there are opportunities with Aramark. Aramark does have some sustainability folks, and they are working on really advancing some things. Yeah, and I think we are back at a place now that I think everybody can say that the post-COVID supply chain challenges are over. There were some real things that were happening there. They are thinking about what they can do to advance it. Where I'm also going to go is ASU is about to go out for an RFP for a food service vendor. And so all of our vendors, and Airmark's here today, they're all going to, they will be asked some things, right? We are going to be looking absolutely for what they can do to support ASU's goals and objectives. And that's the key message that we have been sharing with all of the potential food service vendors as they get ready to, sharpen their pencils. Okay? Does that help?
Well, we got time for one more question here.
Oh.
Then you can find Mark afterwards.
I told you I don't want to give up the microphone now.
We got to get. We still got. I don't want to keep you guys here too late. I guess that's the point.
Thank you. Thank you for enlightening us with what ASU is doing. And coming from the supply chain management department here at ASU, I'm wondering what are the obstacles that you are facing to engage our suppliers? Because you talk about Scope 3 missions, and I know we have to engage them.
Yeah, to be honest, and it's an area that I'm really starting to dig into now, but I just don't think we have enough of an understanding about what everybody's doing, right? And I think, I'll kind of put out where the potential project's going, and that is really developing a scorecard. So really trying to understand what are the 50 or 100 top suppliers, what's the performance actually look like, so that we can utilize that. Number one, to have conversations with them, right? Say, hey, here's where you are. And the federal government has done this. And so this is not this is not something new necessarily. The model exists, but it would be something very similar to that. Have that conversation with them, and then potentially start to wrap more rigorous supply chain criteria into our RFPs. Now, that one is a little loaded, okay? So I don't want to overstep my boundaries, because I think as a state institution, there are certain things that we need to adhere to, but there will be ongoing conversations to kind of find out what are those parameters. All right, Jason says I can't take any more questions, so thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mark, for really summarizing a lot of these things. Obviously there's challenges that we have, but there's also tremendous opportunities, and you allowed me to help get this set up. So I'm very grateful to you and the USP team. Krista, Susan, Maddie was here. You guys have been instrumental in helping me move this thing along. Because, and even to your point for Aramark, they were so flexible. They moved the dates around. Yeah, are there things that we can improve on? There's things that we can all improve on, and it takes that collaboration and that speaking up and that educational pieces. And, that's one of the things that we're trying to do with the Carbon Council is get students together, to identify the opportunities, work on incentives, getting students engaged and activated, and really building out this ecosystem, because the Carbon Council, there's 50 plus, student organizations that have a sustainability as a core principle, for the group. So if we can mobilize 50 student groups, that's thousands of students, and so if we can have some common goals for them, that's kind of what the Carbon Summit is being designed and built for. And, with guys like Troy Swope saying that they're going to help us fill it up, next year, I truly believe that. And so the programs, that I've chosen in innovation and venture development across the street, which is a multidisciplinary degree between Fulton, Cary, and Herberger Design, and then matching that with the applied sustainability solutions, that's really getting to the point of our nonprofit. When I say our, my father's here, he came down from Cottonwood, and we started doing events back in 2014, and it was actually him that got the event started. And, we started we did an event in Sturgis. We were in over our heads a little bit, but the next year we got Travis Tritt, and we made it happen from there. And so we've done about 10 large-scale community concerts and events. We've raised about $1.25 million in community sponsorship. The caveat being most of that went to the headlining artists, getting things up and established. But U.S. Energy, or us, is our social impact nonprofit, and we're accelerating climate action goals. So I'm building out the model, building out these prototypes here at ASU, and yeah, has it been a challenge? Sure, it has. But the opportunities and the possibilities are huge. They're enormous. And so the Carbon Summit being the discovery marketplace for sustainable solutions, and then the ASU Climate Action Fund, ideally we can get it to help accelerate these solutions. And so it's really important to, if we're going to talk about where we're going, especially me personally, we kind of got to talk about where we came from. And in 2019, I was consulting for a welding and fabrication company in North Dakota. They were building, pipelines, and my goal was to start working on the flaring solutions. But the boss, one of my good friends, he's like, my goal, my dream in life is to do a PBR event, because he was sponsoring and supporting professional bull riding. And one of the guys that was in my grade, but he lived in a small town called Trenton outside, his name is Stetson Lawrence. So he was a professional bull rider, and he was sponsored by Ben. And so Ben knew that I was doing events, and he's like, hey, you could help with business development, you could help with us with sales, but I really want this PBR event. And so it's really important to talk about where we've been in order to imagine where we can go. And so here's a little 2019 for the Williston PBR. I might have to click play on this guy. And so anyway, with this event, Stetson was on his last ride. He had broken his neck twice. We had our tribe with the Turtle Mountain Chippewa came out and brought their fancy dancers. We had some drum groups. We had 15 of the top 20 bull riders in the world. We had the best bulls in town. We sold out the event. And I ended up raising $190,000 to put this event on, and we spent every penny in the event. And so in 2019, we had all this momentum, and, we're planning to go down to Houston to talk about, some of these solutions. And we had Little Texas as our, our VIP, concerts, for our sponsors and everything at the end. And then 2020 hit, and so it was quite the change in energy from 19 to 20, because as an events-based nonprofit, it's super, we couldn't do events. And so we had to pivot, and then we ended up pivoting in 2021. That was the first, Carbon Summit was at the College of Idaho, and it was really a regenerative agriculture focus, with, bits and pieces of energy and climate adaptation, and really looking at locally. And then in 2022, the Carbon Summit upgraded to Boise State, where we raised $25,000 to run a reverse pitch competition that literally looked at the STAR score that ASU has, which is a 91.1 here at ASU, and at BSU was a 49 out of 100. And so they had a big fat F, and we ran the competition. We had 22 competitors that competed, and we had 4 winners. And once the event was done, the sustainability director took a different job, the venture college, both their executive director and their program director, one quit, one went another way, and so it really kind of got fumbled, at BSU. And then the city of Boise was like, hey, we just got our climate action roadmap done. We ain't really ready to work on this yet, so you should probably go somewhere where you can scale it. And I was like, okay, I got my undergrad at NAU, and you can see the differences between these posters is that not being in ASU, this is the spaceman in the wheat field is kind of representation of me. I feel like an astronaut sometimes. And my roots being in North Dakota is the wheat field, and then that mountainscape is the San Francisco peaks with like an astral projection, and that was before I came into ASU. And then when I got here, now you can see the Walton Center for Planetary Health on the left, you can see the Nova Center on the right, and it's more space and place based. And so, getting here and, pursuing this and identifying opportunities and incentives, has been such a, it's definitely been a challenge, but I've got to meet amazing people thus far, and I think that we're only going up from here. And so on the left, looking at Arizona State, I asked AI to make ASU sustainable and put a giant saguaro up on the right. And so AI is really in the infancy of, what it can comprehend and do, but it's moving light year. I mean, it's moving so fast. And then on the right, I'm in Peter Bick's class with two other peers, and we're working on a short film called Sweltering Saguaros. And so we're really, trying to apply, what we're learning and what we're talking about and visually articulate, some of these challenges. Because, when we talk about these big problems, obviously articulating them in a way that people understand, seems to be the common theme, no matter what, if it's food systems, energy transitions, circular economies. It's really about framing the problems in a way that we can digest and we can understand and we can take action on. And so I'm trying to be the change I wish to see. So transitioning my own energy, into a more proactive, more positive, because, sometimes when you get really stressed out and things are really hard, you get grumpy, and you get a little discouraged, and so I've had some volatile moments, in my first semester here at ASU, but it's been an amazing experience thus far. And it's critically important, what's being done here. And so, changing the presentation, I guess, downsizing it to PowerPoint might have messed up the format a little bit, but really what we're looking for is social impact, and creating a climate action MVP in the formative event is the Carbon Summit here. And so, we consider this the discovery marketplace for solutions. We're accelerating climate action goals, and hopefully we can figure out how to use the ASU Climate Action Fund to fund three things. This is what we got approved for. You can use it for events. We can use it for scholarships and grants, to incentivize students, and then ecosystem development of, bringing people together to work on these challenges and actually create some infrastructure, and the infrastructure being a sustainable solutions marketplace, where the big operators and corporates and governments can say, hey, we want to focus on this problem. You can put it on the marketplace, and then you can connect with innovators, whether they're big or small, like Troy Swope at Footprint, or student groups, student clubs, to say, hey, we want to get you guys involved and, provide the workforce development, the capacity building opportunities that all of us students are looking for. And so we're in the process of establishing the Carbon Council as, kind of a sustainability lead or liaison. And we got a tentative green light to start the planning process for an Earth Day concert. Could be small, could be big. I guess it really depends on, how much academic will and the student engagement that we get. So I can't lead, I can't produce a Sun Devil Stadium Earth Day concert by myself. I just can't. But I could do a small concert, at a certain scale. But if we want to get people really excited, then, we need that interdependent working groups that all agree that these things are important. And we can, have that global reach and hopefully inspire and aspire, to be the change that we wish to see. And so the climate action confronts significant challenges in terms of, just the consensus and the resource allocation. Because at an institution this big, money is the main concern, because it's a huge operation, it's a huge knowledge enterprise, and so that requires a lot of resources. And so trying to figure out ways to bring in more external resources, like Mark was saying, whether it's grant writing, whether that's individual donors, whether that's corporate sponsorships and partnerships, foundations. There's lots of ways that we can do it, but it definitely requires a unified voice to a certain extent. And so, when you think of climate tech, it's such a burgeoning industry that, right now it sits at 20.34 billion, but the climate change challenge or the opportunity in itself, we're talking about trillion-dollar markets here. And I can't really comprehend what $1 trillion can do or what that means. It just sounds like an amount of money that is almost, inconceivable. But there's such an opportunity that I felt compelled to try to put something like this on and just figure it out. And so how do we do that? Like I always use my hand to try to explain things because it reminds me of a seed. And the seeds principle, this is where we started with the first one, is the seeds principle was our guiding principle. It's evolved now into much more specific topics. And so we hope to keep evolving this because I believe that the human mind, is the garden that these ideas and these seeds need to be planted into to grow and kind of be the changes that we wish to see, because we are the best technology, and we make all this other technology to make our lives easier. So if we are working together, daisy chained together, it's not just a multiplier, it squares our energy. And that's one thing that is super important to remember, is that when we are working together on common goals, it's not just multiplied, it's squared. And that is a really important thing to keep in mind. And what we try to do with that seeds principle, so if I had my 5 seeds pillars on this hand, my other one would be the 5 principles of lean startup, that entrepreneurs are everywhere. Entrepreneurship is management, so you're learning, experiencing, and you're picking up the skills you need as you're practicing, as you're failing, as you're trying, as you're getting, you're upset, as you're working through the barriers and obstacles. It's really important that I always try to act like a lean startup, because we're resourceful, we're resilient, and then that validates the learning. You're experiencing it as you go. And we call this innovation accounting. Innovation accounting is creating new business models. It's thinking of new ways to solve these problems. And how do we measure these things? We got to build, measure, learn, iterate. And so this is the Carbon Summit is my way of experimenting, learning, measuring, building, iterating. And so we're on this is technically year 3, year 1 here, but it was a pilot, a stress test, validation. That's what I see of the Carbon Summit at now, getting to the point where when you can show people what it does, what it is, it's a generative event. This event has the ability to do work if it's built and designed and integrated into the right home, like to where it will physically actually do work. And that's something that I'd like to see all events get to, but we're piloting and innovating a whole new model in my mind. And so the seeds principle in action, we did that's actually supposed to be 2022 in Boise. We did the Carbon Venture Challenge, and then we've done 2 years in a row of sponsoring the Ideas Competition at the University of Montana around the climate track. And so we have a partnership with the Blackstone Launchpad in Missoula. And so they run this competition. We put up a little bit of prize money, and they share all the ideas, for what the students come up with. This past April, we did the Southwest Film Expo in Peoria, and one of my best friends, his mom was the mayor at the time, Kathy Carlat, and so they gave us a grant to test it out, and then we ended up meeting Matthew Earl Jones, the film commissioner of Arizona, the brother of James Earl Jones. And so he really wants to, start looking at how we can tell sustainability stories, Arizona stories, that obviously make an impact. And so this is this is my drawing in my second class in Professor Sherman's class in Fundamentals of Entrepreneurial Leadership in the MSIVD. And I'm looking out the window in the Nova Center at the Walton Center here. And so this is in my mind what's going to happen with U.S. Energy, the ASU Climate Action Fund, and what it's going to take, to spin these things up and to really provide sustainable solutions. And so that's what turned into the poster is these little drawings, and it's so simple, right? And so timing is everything. And what we're learning with entrepreneurship is the most important factor to entrepreneurship is timing. You could be early, you could be late, but at this point in time, I think we're right on time. And so whether it's ASU's, commitment to innovation and sustainability, their priorities, whether single-use plastic, renewable energy, timing is really good. And I think it's not the most favorable to be the hottest city in the United States, but at the same time, it creates a tremendous need. As Plato says, our need will be the creator. I got a chance to go to Athens last fall and meet with the Hellenic Film Commission on potentially doing some films in the future there. And they have a 40% tax incentive. So big incentive. Here in Arizona, we've got a 25%. So trying to get to the point where we're going to be using film to tell these stories. And one of the big things that my work focuses on is helping create a roadmap for ASU or institutions becoming fully sustainable. And that's a very heavy haul. It's a very ambitious project. But I'm working with a design firm to create this marketplace. We've done the UI, the UX. I'm not quite ready to showcase that yet because there's a lot to it, but that little logo, that gold logo is the ASU Climate Action Fund. First step is the Carbon Summit being the discovery, hearing from everybody on, what they're working on, what they care about, gathering research, doing surveys. I've done over 80 surveys in interviews in my IVD class. We're kind of doing these things simultaneously to a certain extent, but this is what my roadmap in my programs look like for the next 2 years. And so here's just a rendering of if we had to try to visualize what the marketplace would be doing. It would be connecting people, it would be a showcase, it would be what we call actionable sustainability. And AI has some great imagination. It needs a little tweaking. You have to be really specific for it. But it is coming along real quick. And so again, our goal is to see if we can get to this Earth Day or E-Day, concert. And the ASU Climate Action Fund is kind of a safe space, because I've found that, corporations don't necessarily want to pay the little nonprofit for a multitude of reasons, but if you have an institution behind you and you have good ideas and you can make things happen, that's going to be my next big test to see if we can, spin this fund up to, be a catalyst and a social impact engine for what we call these sustainable solutions. And and so obviously you can see the format and our core values is expressed here today. And the keys to success, for I think any organization is really collaborations and partnerships. And with the challenges that we have, obviously the event being one of the communication mechanisms, the university being the experiment, the lab, and the convener, the corporates kind of being the fuel, and they have the problems, and so we need to convince them to delegate some of these opportunities and incentives to us. And then the cities, if we can get the cities to, kind of look at these, whether it's a climate action roadmap, whether it's a sustainability strategy, here in the Valley, these are ubiquitous problems. These are the same problems that all the cities have. And so instead of every city doing their own plan, we need to share best practices. And the best practice that I have is from my experiences of using events to bring people together to find common ground for common good. And that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what I'm going to continue to try to do. And so we've, in the experience thus far, there's been a dozen people who have come to me with solutions saying they need help with this, they need help with that, they need help with this. And that's exactly what we're trying to do, is get those solution providers to come and say, this is what we have, this is our value, and this is where we need help. And that's what the marketplace, if I can build this marketplace correctly, it will do work as well, to where these problems can be framed in a very clear way. Solution providers can, give their proposals, bring their solutions and their technologies. And then the operators, the owner-operators, the demand side, can put their RFPs on this platform and we can match make. And so one of the presentations I gave last year in the Netherlands was in Den Haag, The Hague, and it was on energy transitions at Impact Fest. And it was actually the exact same time. The Impact Fest just got over a couple days ago, so I couldn't go. But dreams, we have to dream together. Dreams serve social and emotional adaptive functions. They are the most powerful thing that we have. When we talk about optimism, hope, I have dreams. I think you all have dreams. And if we dream together, there's nothing we can't do. And so thank you so much for coming out today. This is the last talk that I have. We do have one more panel and 2 more presentations. So I'm actually not going to take questions because we're a little behind. But if you feel free to get a hold of me, LinkedIn, email, I got cards. I'm always open to talk. My role at USP is sustainability events. And so I'm all ears and available to talk about how we can support you and dream together, plan together, and make things happen. And so, thank you.